Hey guys, what's up? Roku here with a video that is needed, but not really a video that is fun to make exactly, right? This is the video that is covering all the new changes that are coming with a new patch 11.13, and it's mostly just revolving around the mobility changes that Riot has made. And yeah, it's not really a fun video to make because Riot have basically exclusively targeted top laners with the changes. Gale Force and ADC items with Zeal are mostly just left untouched, right? Well, not mostly, they're just completely untouched. Prowler's Claw still exists, despite being, the most broken, cancerous sort of mobility in the game. It's just point and click with no counterplay at all, It just lets assassins have the damage to just one-shot you if you aren't a tank, right? It's like there's so many things that are wrong with the game, and they went after us, which is why I kind of really don't like these changes. But it is what it is, right? Like, when Riot makes stupid decisions, we just have to suck it up and adapt, right? Now, a thing to keep in mind is that, this isn't going to change things too much for you guys in lower elos, right? Because basically speaking, in lower elos, there's still room for you to get good enough at Darius to the point where you're killing people in lane and just building off of that. This change, however, is going to seriously mess up Darius's viability in higher elos, because basically what Riot has done is they took away his 1v1 power in lane, and after that, Darius was basically just a Stridebreaker bot of just use Stridebreaker to get catches, then turn that into multiple kills, right? But they took away Stridebreaker too, so Darius is gonna be left in a very, very horrible position, right? And like I said, I didn't even want to make this video, but because you guys asked so much, I decided I had to do it for you guys. If you guys want me to remake all of my guide videos for this new patch, then I say let's just get this video to 500 likes. If we can do that, I'll remake all of the guides. So yeah, that's my condition, I guess. So yeah. Also, it's very hot because it's the summer, so yeah, if I look sweaty, then that's why, right? Anyway, let's just cover the changes first, right? Because, it's hard to talk about changes if we don't know what they are to begin with, and some of you guys probably, aren't caught up, so I just want to make sure everybody knows what's happening and then get into the specifics, right? And I'll also talk about the new items, too, Athenaeus Chains and Hullbreakers, so yeah, give my opinion on everything. So, yeah, they're nerfing Divine Sunderer for ranged champions, so this is just nerfing Ezreal, but they really haven't done anything, really, because Divine Sunderer is still overpowered for melee champions, right? So, another Riot Games classic of just not buffing something properly. Mage items are all getting a 200 gold price cut, so that's interesting and fun, right, guys? Moonstone is getting more healing and shield power because supports aren't overpowered enough, according to Riot Games. And here we have our BS, right? Stridebreaker gets completely messed up. Shirelia's and everything else gets tiny little nerfs. Gale Force is barely touched, just 1%, right? And if you actually read the list here, it's basically just top laner items, right? Like Stridebreaker, Nimbus Cloak, we're using that, right? Death Stance, Deadbands, Black Cleaver, Triforce. It's just top laner items, and then a bunch of things from other classes that Riot pretends that they care, right? And as for champion nerfs, I'm not gonna go over these, right? If you guys want a full patch review, let me know. But yeah, right, we're focusing on these things. So I'm gonna go over how each item is affected, the ones that are related to us, of course. And yeah, let's just get right into it. So the biggest change is Stridebreaker, right? So Stridebreaker is completely just neutered, right? They added a bunch of stats, right? It does more damage. The slow is 90% and it decays over 3 seconds, right? And they gave it back 200 health, right? So stat-wise, it's pretty good, but the active is basically completely useless, right? Because before, old Stridebreaker would dash you forward and then do the Stridebreaker in front of you, right? But now, Stridebreaker is just on top of you, right? I hope I don't have to explain why this is bad, right? But I am going to anyway, right? So let me open up Paint here, right? So here's how it would work, right? Let's say you are Darius. I'll just draw a line here from before or after, right? This is our current version, right? So we have Darius here, right? D for Darius, right? And the way Stridebreaker would work is it first gives us a dash, right? So it's a 300 range dash, And then it would give like the Stridebreaker active, and the center of the active would be Darius's auto attack range. So that's 300, and then his auto attack range 175, and then the slow for Stridebreaker, right? And the radius of the circle is 450, but because we're only talking about the range of it, right, from where we stand, it's going to add 225, right? 225, right? That's like the range in front of you, right? So if we do the math here, Stridebreaker gave us 700 range, right? That's the range it gave us before. And sorry for the handwriting, but I hope I'm explaining well, right? So before, Stridebreaker changed our effective range by a lot, because before, our longest range ability was basically our pull, right? And E range was just 535 units, right? At the very tip of it, it's 535, right? But Stridebreaker has a 700 range active, and if you use it in combination with the E, it gives you like a 835 range E, right? So, like, Stridebreaker increased our range, right? And it was insane. But now, not only does Stridebreaker not dash, Stridebreaker is actually centered on Darius, right? Before, it would center here, right? It would start here, right, at the center, and then it would, like, spin like that, right? But now it spins around Darius, right? So, basically, Stridebreaker just gives you a 225 range, right? Because it's just you, Darius, and then this is Stridebreaker, right? Now, that is horrible, because if you actually look, it's less than Q range, right? It is slightly in front of you, but it's just like there-ish, right? It's not in your auto attack range anymore, right? So maybe it's 230 or 240, but like it's less than Q range. So Stridebreaker now does nothing to extend our range on Darius, right? It doesn't do that at all. And Stridebreaker is basically just useless, because aside from cases in lane where it helps you kite people, or cases where you're already on top of people, it's really not going to be that useful, because let's be honest, right? Darius's biggest problem is getting kited, and Stridebreaker helped us with that, right? But now that we don't have Stridebreaker, we're going to just keep getting kited even more, right? And this item is not going to help solve that at all, right? Though it's going to do a bit more damage, a lot more slows, it's basically just a Randuin's at this point, right? And earlier on, especially, you're not going to be nearly tanky enough to get in range to slow multiple people with this. So it's like, Stridebreaker right now is only good because of its stats, right? It gives you 80 attack speed, HP, ability, haste, which is all you need, and then you can go for, you know, Sterax and your tank items. But aside from the stats, the usefulness of Stridebreaker's active has just gone down massively, right? Which has basically just weakened it insanely, like just a lot, right? As for the other items, right? Death Stance, though we didn't even build it as much, right? The movement speed that we got from getting a kill has just been completely removed for 5% more healing, which is worthless. So this item is way worse as well. And, I mean, we didn't even build Death Stance that much, but just the use case just became even less. Because basically, because they destroyed Deadman's, Death Stance was kind of like a weird replacement for Death. Because they removed Deadman's Plate, Death Stance, with the movement speed it gave and stuff, was kind of like a weird replacement for it, right, in some cases. Now that's not even possible. We don't really have a good armor item that gives us, you know, movement speed anymore. So we're going to have to be building Randuin's a lot more, but still, right? And Cleaver got its move speed removed, but Cleaver was always a horrible item, and this doesn't really change anything, right? No matter what they add to this item, it's always going to be bad. But yeah, right? So the biggest change is the fact that Stridebreaker is just dead, right? So I'm going to go into, I think you guys saw this while I was going through this. This is basically like a tier list I've built in-game of the best mythics, right? And some of you guys have already put this together. We're going back to Triforce, right? Because the only thing good about Stridebreaker is basically just the stats, we might as well go for the thing that gives us enough of the stats that we need and gives us a ton of damage on top of it, right? Triforce gives us a lot of damage, and it lets us take down turrets very, very quickly. And, you know, it just adds to our combo and stuff, and it's just, like, it's really good in fights, right? And in 1v1s, right? though it's worse than Stridebreaker's, like, it's worse than current Stridebreaker, because the new Stridebreaker is just going to be useful for its stats, then you might as well just go Triforce, right? And the good thing about Triforce is that it's got a pretty decent build path too. Now, Iron Spike is great and all, right? Iron Spike is a pretty good buy, but, you know, Sheen just powers up your W insanely hard, so, you know, Triforce is just really, really good in 1v1s, in lane, the build path is pretty decent. It's just that, like, our team fighting strength is going to be way, way down, and unlike before we had Stridebreaker, we don't really have anything to look like, you know, anything to fix our team fighting power. Now, I've had a lot of people think that this is good news that we're going back to the Triforce meta, right? Woohoo, Triforce is back! And I hate to tell this to you guys, but this is not good at all. Because basically, right, this isn't just, oh, Season 10 meta again. Because the game is different from Season 10, right? Everybody has all these OP items, everybody has their OP mobility, everybody else is just super, super overpowered with all their movement and stuff. They got all their new items, they're just like one-shotting everyone, right? Power Skull, Gale Force, whatever. And Riot has basically added very, very annoying cancerous mobility to every single champion they're releasing, which is kind of funny because they're trying to cut back mobility, even though they're not cutting it back in their champion design. Kind of proves that they're incompetent. But yeah, right? So, like, everybody else is just jumping around, moving, and everybody else is so stronger, but we're weaker as top laners, right? And it's honestly really disgusting because top lane is already insanely weak as it is, especially in higher elos. But yeah, right? It's Triforce being back isn't good. It's just the best we can do considering how Riot has completely destroyed us, right? The playstyle of Darius is going to go back to basically what it used to be. He's obviously not going to be as strong at it, but it's going to have to be what it used to be, right? Before, right, with Stridebreaker meta, we were focusing on getting out of laning phase, right? Your focus was to either win lane or be even, and then work together with your team to get picks and turn that into multiple kills in team fights, right? That was the goal when we had Stridebreaker, because Stridebreaker gave Darius a very, very strong ability to just catch people, and because of his kit, and because of how his teammates could follow up, he could just turn 1 or 2 catches into multiple team kills. Now, like, because that's no longer an option, we really have to try to win lane a lot more, right? So focus is a lot more shifted to winning lane, right? Now, Darius is not going to be useless in team fighting. He's still a good team fighter, but it's just that we have to basically, you have to get kills in lane 2-3, and then you have to just keep your, like, summoner spells for team fights and stuff, right? You legit can't do anything without your sums. Like, with Stridebreaker, it was like, oh, nice, I get to be a champion without my Flash Ghost, but that's no longer the case, right? We have to have our sums when we want to do anything, like, outside of the lane, which sucks, but it's the status quo. So basically, win lane, and then use sums to carry fights, right? And if you don't have sums, don't do anything unless there's some big engagement on your team. And yeah, that's basically the playstyle of Darius, right? Now, because Stridebreaker was so strong, it basically eliminated every single other alternative, right? Stridebreaker was so good that anything else became not good because it just wasn't Stridebreaker, right? Which is why I've made a tier list of all the other mythics that are now buildable because Stridebreaker isn't as strong anymore, right? So I've discussed why our Triforce is strongest, right? It makes so that we can take down turrets very fast, and because we don't take teleport, right? And let's say you're fighting as Shen, he teleports down, gets a killer, so now you can get a lot more with the Sheen, and also Triforce's passive stacks up on turrets, so you can take down a big chunk of a turret if the enemy top laner is leading lane. So that's pretty good, right? It helps a lot in fights. Your W and Sheen damage in fights is actually crazy with Triforce in 1v1s. So yeah, Triforce is very good in 1v1ing. This doesn't mean that he's going to transition to a split push, playstyle, because, like I said, because everybody else is more mobile, split pushers have to be, like, very mobile to actually do any proper split pushing, right? You only can split with champions like Fiora, Camille, Tryndamere, who have very disgusting mobility, right? That you can just, like, they get caught, and then you can just cross multiple walls in a few seconds and just get away, right? Darius can't do that. If you're split pushing with Darius, you're going to have to just, you're going to be caught eventually in a 1v2, 1v3, 1v4, whatever. And because of the state of the game, you're probably just going to die, lose your lead, and whatever, right? So you're going to have to just shove sides and be there for objectives and just fight with your team. That's basically the goal for Darius, right? Now, aside from Triforce, what other options do we have, right? Stridebreaker is still a decent option, right? Like I said, the stats on it are really, really good. So if you want to be a bit more tanky and play with your team more, if you're going for that kind of playstyle, then Stridebreaker is a decent option because it gives you all the stats you need, in addition to it giving you a very nice active that works with your team together. But the thing is, this item I don't think is going to be, like, you know, it's not nearly as good as it used to be. So I would just say build Triforce most of the time. If you kind of miss the old playstyle of just catching people with Stridebreaker, you can go Turbo Kim Tank, right? Turbo Kim Tank isn't actually a bad option at all. It's basically just Righteous Glory. And if you're going for an early game playstyle where you just run around mid-top, get a bunch of kills, all that, then this is a great item. Also, because of how cheap it is, you can kind of build it from behind and still be effective for your team, right? So yeah, Turbo Chem Tank is a very decent item to buy if you're behind and you just want to play with your team and get kills for them. But the thing with Turbo Chem Tank is you have to get Sterax or some kind of, like, you have to get Sterax after it so you can actually have the damage to do anything, because without some AD, right, it's kind of embarrassing how little you do, right? Aside from that, let's just get into the rest of these items. Divine Sunder is kind of buildable, but the thing about Divine Sunder is the stats it gives aren't that good, and it's basically just a worse version of Triforce, right? It just gives no attack speed. The Mythic passive is basically worthless, so I would say Divine Sunder is, like, barely buildable because it works with this kit, but any situation, Divine Sunder will be good, Triforce will be better. Gore Drinker. Now, Gore Drinker is, like, the active of it and stuff are better than Stridebreaker, but it doesn't give you the stats we need. By that, I mean attack speed, right? So if you're a lower elo, like, you know, player, then Gore Drinker will be here in, I would say, A tier, I guess, right? Gore Drinker will be up here, but because I, as a, you know, higher elo player and many other higher elo Darius players, we need attack speed to function with, the items that give us that are going to be better off, right? Because we don't want to waste money later on in the game on attack speed. You want to just have it in one item and then just go tank and Sterax, you know. So yeah, Gold Drinker is very good if you're going for some meatball overstat Darius build where you're just basically just running over people without thinking too much about combos or whatever, right? So if you're gonna want to go for that build, Gold Drinker isn't that bad, but, like, let's be real here. Kiting is still the main problem, and we're not gonna get more than 2-3 people in our melee range, right? So yeah, this item is okay, right? And higher elo, it's, like, barely buildable, but in lower elos it might be kind of buildable, right? And these two items are just here because they're tank items and they kind of synergize with Darius, but they're only there if, like, it's a team you can build Gold Drinker against. But realistically, right, if it's a team that are gonna go in on you, they're all melee and whatever, and you just want to be tanky instead. But let's be real, you mostly just want to go for Turbo Chem Tank instead of these, right? Because the stats aren't even that much better, right? And all they do is just give their own weird passives and stuff. So yeah, Turbo Chem Tank is still the best tank option. Anyway, so that is pretty much it for all of the mythics, right? Now we're gonna talk about the new items, right? Because this is, at least we get something new and exciting in the new patch. 2 new items. We get Hullbreaker, and we get Anathema's chains. Okay. What? Who names these? Whatever. Okay. Let's go for a Hullbreaker first, right? So I'm gonna basically go over the stats of the items and how useful they're gonna be on Darius, and if they are useful, when you should build them, right? So Hullbreaker. Hullbreaker gives 50 attack damage, 300 health, some HP regen that we don't care about, and it has a passive called Boarding Party. If you have no allied champions nearby, you get 20 MR and 20 armor, right? Well, not 20, but it stacks with your, like, level, right? So yeah, it stacks from 20 to 45 that later on you're going to the game, but it's, like, at least 20, right? And later on, it's, like, it just scales with levels, right? So yeah, right? And you do 20% extra damage to turrets, and when you have cannon minions or super minions near you, they get 60 armor and MR, and they do 200% increased damage to turrets, right? So I'm gonna have a wave here, and I'm gonna make turrets non-invincible. Okay, so as you can see, once I got near this minion, right, it has 60 armor and magic resist, whereas let's say this minion does not have that. And it does way more damage to the turrets. Let me just go and clear this wave here. I don't think I've bound my teleport button on this account. Okay, so I do more damage to turrets, right? Which pairs up really nice with Triforce. And my cannon does more damage to turrets too. As you guys can see, these minions alone are just destroying this turret, right? So you can imagine just split pushing with this on like a Trinity or something. I'm not sure if Trinity can build this unless, you know, yeah, whatever, right? Just imagine just like going to town in some of these turrets with just these minions, because the minions themselves just do a ton of damage, right? Like the minions themselves just destroy turrets even more so than you, right? So yeah, like just watch these guys destroy this turret. Like it's unbelievable how fast they do it. And if we get Triforce, for example, let's get that. We basically just obliterate turrets, right? Now this item is insane for split pushing champions, right? It's very good for split pushing champions, but unfortunately, it's not really the best for Darius, because remember, we're trying to work with our team here. We're trying to do stuff with our team, and we're just trying to use our sums with the team. But if you find yourself in a game where you're mostly side laning, then going this third item, after Sterax, of course, is not actually a bad idea, because you get very good stats for just one item, right? You get 300 health, 20 armor magic resist at least, and you get 50 AD, right? So, like, a trifecta of items like this, let's say you're super fed, but your team's kind of bad, so you're just split pushing, right? You destroy turrets insanely quickly, right? You destroy turrets insanely quickly, and you're very good at fighting against multiple people, right? Because the item is very good when you're alone. So it's like, they've given us an option to go for more of a split push focused Darius build with Triforce, with Hullbreaker, right? Sterax Gauge still needs to be there because it's basically the perfect item for Darius. You shouldn't really go Hullbreaker second, in my opinion, because Sterax is like a necessity, but it's not like out of question, basically, right? It's still possible. And also, the turret basically does no damage to the cannon minions, right? So there's that too, right? So there was this insane 3-item split push build. If you're going for super split push from the beginning, you can just, you know, go Triforce and Hullbreaker and then save Sterax for the 3rd item. But I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend still going for Hullbreaker only when you're having your 3rd item, right? So yeah, that's an option, right? And another insane, like, Hullbreaker is basically, if I had to tier items up, I would put Hullbreaker on the, like, just above, say, Black Cleaver and Death Stance, right? It's good in some rare cases, but you're not going to be building it for most of the time. I should have turned those minions off. I kind of let the minions stack up and end the game before I could finish the recording, but, I guess I'm here to finish the recording anyway. So, as I was saying, we're getting to the other item that's being added. Anathema's Chains or whatever it's called. Anathema's whatever. Let's get it right here. Okay, so this item is far more interesting than Hullbreaker, right? It's a very, very good item, actually. And it's a solid 3rd item choice, or even 2nd item choice for some comps, right? And I'm not even lying. Against some teams and some comps, rushing this 2nd item is a great choice because it's only 2,500 gold. Only 2,500 gold for this much stuff is insane, right? And I think this is the item that they're going to have to nerf soon, because this item is going to shift the balance into the favor of top laners, and we all know that the second top laners get anything nice, Riot just nerfs them, right? But yeah, basically what this item does is, I'm going to explain how it works, okay? So, the item gives us 650 health, which is great, and 20 ability haste, right? But that's not why we're building this. We're building it because it's active. You know how with Knight's Vow, you can pick, like, an ally? You can do the same with Anathema's Chains, but you can do it on an enemy, right? And you can do it on, like, you know, it's like, you can do it while dead, and you can do it while, you know, from infinite range, right? So if there was, let's say, you know, an enemy here, for example, right? I'm gonna put a ward down here. Okay. Tuck. Alright, so let's say there was an enemy over there. I can do it to them, right? And now I'm binded to them, right? Or let's just say, let's wait the cooldown over, or I guess I'll just refresh the cooldowns like that. Okay, and let's just die. So I'm dead, right? Let's give my cooldown back. And so I could just use it while dead, right? So what does this item do? It has two passives, Vendetta and Vengeance, right? So over 1 minute, it stacks up Vendetta stacks, right? And basically how it does is it stacks up 1 stack per 2 seconds, right? So 1, 2, 1 stack, 1, 2, 1 stack, and it stacks up until 30, right? So it stacks up until 30, and once it stacks up, it's complete, right? So while it is stacking, it gives you 1% damage reduction from the person you marked for every stack of Vendetta. So if we're at 15 stacks, then the person we just marked with it does 15% less damage to us. So all of their damage, aside from true damage perhaps, gets cut by 15%, right? So that is kind of big, right? Imagine the enemy has a Kog'Maw or a Jinx, and their whole team is griefing, and it's just this one, like, disgusting, overpowered carry that's just killing everything. You can just build this and put this Vendetta on them and just cut their damage by 30%, which is insane, right? You can also do it to split pushers. Say if there's a Tryndamere or some kind of, like, you know, top laner that's, like, you know, some kind of top laner that is, like, very good at, like, side laning, right? They're very good at 1v1, and you just can't beat them. You can build this and cut their damage so low that it's very possible for you to kill them, because Darius loves living longer, right? This item makes us very, very, very tanky against a certain opponent. And if you're up against a team where they're basically being carried by just one person, this item will do wonders, right? So third item, Anathema's Chains versus a carry-focused team or something is going to be a very, very good idea. Now, the other passive doesn't really matter much to us. It's called Vengeance, but basically when we fully stack our Anathema Chains thing, right? When we fully stack our Vendetta stacks, the person that is, like, marked by us will basically have 20% less tenacity. You know how Ornn Brittle works, where if he has Brittle on you, you basically are CC'd for longer. That's basically what this item does. If you have Anathema Chains on someone, then all of your CC against them will be longer. Now, this is not that valuable, because, like, I'll just have a dummy here without the Vendetta stack, right? This is not that valuable because Darius basically just have 2 things of CC that can be reduced by tenacity. The slow after his pull, right? And then his W slow, which isn't even visible on these guys because they're bots, right? Those are the only things that it works on Darius for, so it's not that useful for him. But the Vendetta part is very, very, very broken. So I would say that is a huge, huge, huge change, right? So yeah, this item is quite strong against specific teams. I think it deserves the same spot as Kempuk Chainsword and Silvermere Dawn, as it's not an item you're going to be building regularly, but it's an emergency item that you can just build, and it helps you solve major problems, such as anti-heal, enemy has too much lifesteal, or enemy has too much CC, or has suppressions, or Mordekaiser, or whatever. And this is if the enemy has a very strong few champions, where, like, they're basically, somebody is going 1v9 in the enemy team, and you just want to make sure that they can't 1v9 anymore. Things like that, you know? So yeah, this is a very good item in, like, you know, in the build of our new Darius next patch. But yeah, I don't think the build is going to change too much. We're just going to go for Triforce, Sterak's, then either one of the new items or just Gargoyles and a full tank, right? The build isn't going to change that much. So yeah, I mean, that is pretty much it for this video, I'd say. You know, those are all of my thoughts and all my explanations behind everything. As I said in the beginning of the video, if you guys make this video reach 500 likes, I'll try to go through all of the guide videos I've made and just basically remake them to match the new item builds and stuff like that, right? So that's like a new item tier list, and I'll also try to make a new Darius guide, hopefully soon, to match with the new changes and stuff, right? But yeah, that is pretty much it for this video. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.